Hello, today I want to talk about base rate neglect, base rate fallacy, or base rate bias. They're all the same thing, and it's well documented by Daniel Kahneman and others. I'm also going to use Tesla as an example, not because I want to pick on them, but because it's a good example in this case. Right? What is base rate fallacy? Right, let's suppose a sample of university students has an average GPA of 2.78 and a standard deviation of 0.45. We're given the information that Cindy Sue is quiet, wears glasses, and likes to read. And we're asked, what is Cindy Sue's GPA? Now, almost universally, people will pick a GPA that is above average because they're falsely linking being quiet, wearing glasses, and liking to read as predictors of GPA to raise her GPA above that of what the data would suggest. This is an actual example, and it's well documented. We will use anecdotal knowledge to alter or maybe even ignore the actual statistics. Right, here's another one. William Robert is studious and likes to listen to classical music. Which is more likely? William Robert is a truck driver, or William Robert is a literature professor? Again, people will pick literature professor much more often than the data would suggest is possible. In reality, there are 10,000 times more truck drivers than professors of literature. Thus, it's extremely unlikely that William Robert is a literature professor, but people will pick this quite often, given, again, data that really isn't indicative of what his actual profession is. All right, so now let's look at the automobile industry. On the left, we can see revenues for many automobile companies, and we can see that in the history of the world, there has never, ever been an automobile company that has had revenues of $1 trillion. In fact, it has never even come close to that. And in fact, there's only 8 automobile companies that have had revenues of $100 billion or more. And you can see at the very bottom of the list is Tesla with about $24.5 billion for their most recent fiscal numbers. Now, in the news, I have recently seen the following statements: that Tesla will generate $1 trillion in revenue in the next decade per year, or that Tesla will have revenues of $100 billion in revenue annually by 2025. Now, we should also say that there's all kinds of news about Tesla. There's some of it is extremely positive. It's the best company ever. It's gonna rule the universe at some point. To Tesla is the most overvalued stock I've ever seen. What I don't want you to do, I don't want you to believe the hype in either direction. What I want you to do is think about the base case. Now, the base case would suggest that it is impossible for Tesla to generate $1 trillion in revenue in the next decade. No car company has ever come even close to doing that. It would suggest that it's possible that Tesla will have $1 billion in revenue in the next 5 years, but that's relatively unlikely given the small number of companies that have actually done it and the fact that Tesla, although growing, is becoming more mature, is only a quarter of the way there. It's unlikely it will continue to have the same growth rates. You could look, and I suggest you do, at growth-based cases to see what kind of growth rate a company of its age and maturity could expect as a base case. So again, what I don't want you to do, I don't want you to believe the hype in either direction. I want you to do the actual analysis. Here we looked at just revenues. I think you can look at earnings, you can look at growth rates, you can look at a lot of these things to get a better sense of what Tesla and any company you're looking at might possibly do in the future. Thanks so much for listening. I welcome your comments. I hope you enjoyed that.